title. Well, it might be shorter because with the time you.
Welcome in to the Skol Purple podcast. It's Carson and David. Hopefully Tony will be joining us here shortly. Glad to have you with us. And we're going to talk about the Vikings getting back to their winning ways with a 33-26 victory over the Fighting Bill Belichick's. But first, let's have our roll-in.
Win or lose, at the Skol Purple podcast, we are here to analyze the game, answer your questions, cry with you, or celebrate together. It's the Fan Express line, presented by the Skol Purple podcast. And it starts now.
All right, there you have it. And the Minnesota Vikings are back on top with a 33-26 victory on Thanksgiving. And here are two of the Skol Purple podcast family members here on Thanksgiving. We're having family time with our normal families and with our Skol family, if you
Purple
will.
family. That's right.
Purple family, that's right. So good to have you on, David. And I see you got your Kirk chains on right there.
Yes, baby. Yes. Yes. Yes.
There
I
we
told you
go.
last week I was not worried about that Cowboys game. They
Yeah.
got back on track.
Yeah, I think we're going to get into a lot of stuff here, but the first thing I wrote down today, just kind of notes from this game, is just how well Kevin O'Connell did adjusting from last week
Yes.
to put together a short, quick passing attack, especially early on, to kind of thwart that pass rush that New England gives. We saw Matthew Judon pretty much get neutralized for most of this game. Credit Blake Brandel a little bit, but also credit Kevin O'Connell for putting the Vikings in a much better situation where they didn't have to let Kirk drop 5 to 7 steps and make those throws down the field.
Right, and basically wait for developing routes down the field that wasn't going to be there. It was a good, quick game plan, just like you said. It looks just they learned a lot from last week, so now they got to take it into next week with the Jets, and even though the Jets have a good defense also, so it's another test.
Yeah, 2 good defenses in a row, and I'm very interested to see how much difference there is in playing the Jets defense versus the Patriots defense. I think it's going to be interesting to see because I don't think there's a member on that defensive line for the Patriots that's like Quinnen Williams, but obviously they have the pass rushers on the outside with Judon and then Uche as well. But it's going to be interesting to see the Vikings next week. But obviously we got to talk about this game first.
So
Go ahead.
If the Vikings beat the Jets, they basically sweep the AFC East.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. So we got one more left. One more left. That's right. That's right. We got Tony joining us here. Tony, how's it going, man? I see you're still stuffing your face there with some Thanksgiving turkey. Gotta love it. So we got David Chains over here. So
that's right.
We're just having a lot of fun here.
Yeah, you got me off the beaten path here. I'm out of town visiting, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity, obviously, for the post game. So I'm super excited. I'm definitely happy I'm doing it after a win. So that's the nice thing.
That's right. We've got to be pretty thrilled with that and the outcome as well. It was just one of those games again where the Vikings, it felt like they could have pulled away there, and they just didn't, and it had to be close at the end because why not, But again, the Vikings finding ways to win, and you can say what you want about the defense for 3 quarters of this game, but they made the plays when they needed to in that fourth quarter once again to be able to come away with the victory. So that is a huge thing that the Vikings have just continued to be able to do throughout this season when it matters the most of the time. Obviously not last week or the Philadelphia game, but just again, finding ways to win when or finding ways to execute when the game depends on it, I guess, if you will. So, and I was just talking to David, Tony. I thought Kevin O'Connell's game plan was very good with the short passing game, getting Kirk these quick little throws to get him in a rhythm, as well as avoid those pass rushers for New England getting going. And the Vikings, I thought, did really well compared to obviously last week, but it seemed like Kevin O'Connell made that adjustment from last week. I would have liked to seen more of an adjustment last week in the middle of the game instead of having to wait for this week, but I think that's maybe part of being a rookie head coach.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I think that something I talked about last week was just wanting to see some adjustments and meaningful adjustments at that, things that are actually going to impact this team in a positive way. So, I felt that the game plan was certainly solid enough. I think they tried to solve some of the issues that we saw last week. Obviously, I was a bit concerned with Darisaw being out this week. What that was going to look like. And I think they did a pretty good job of trying to create motion. I liked that they didn't completely abandon the run, even though it was kind of tough sledding. But you need to be able to do those things.
Right.
You need to be able to stay strong in your convictions, because if we abandon the run, it's going to be pretty tough to keep that defense honest. So overall, I thought it was good. I mean, if I'm being super nitpicky, there were a couple of third and shorts that I felt that probably could have called a little bit better. But those are things.
Yep.
If they go the other way, we don't even remember them. So
Right.
Overall, I thought it was a good game plan, and certainly, after a week where we only score 3 points, it was nice to see the offense putting up 33 points today to show that they are more than capable of looking good and putting up points on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
David, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The game plan that he came in with, it was pretty good. Just like you said, nitpicking with those third and shorts, those passes. What's going on with the screen game? Like, can we stop doing that, please? Like, those screens are getting blown up. I mean, I've been saying it for weeks. If you're gonna throw a screen, at least throw it to Rager. Some of these fast guys,
Yeah.
like no more of these
Thielen.
screens. No Thielen. Like, there was a play with Thielen. Probably if he would have looked back and knew that he was the guy going to catch the ball, that almost would have been a touchdown because he had blockers in front of him. I mean, but just like you said, just like Tony said, like we can nitpick on those things, but if we would have lost, we'd have been like, oh my God. But we won,
Right.
so it's kind of like, let's go forward. But my biggest nitpick with the whole thing is the officials. The too many men in the huddle,
Oh
all
gosh.
starts. Like a lot of those plays are just kept giving New England a chance. And I'm like, oh, they're gonna lose this game right now because they keep giving them chances after chance.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just letting teams hang around is just something that I think this team is going to be. I think, we're over halfway into the season now. I think we just have to come to accept that this is the team. This is how it is. If the Vikings are going to win games, it's going to be a close game, which, by the way, heads up national television, maybe you want to throw that. Maybe we don't. Maybe you want to throw that Giants game in a few weeks over to Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I thought maybe the Jets game. I know. I think Miami and San Francisco also the same week the Vikings play the Jets. There was talk about that game getting flexed. Nothing happened. So we're gonna have Colts and Cowboys on a Sunday night, which is just like, I mean, no, all respect to the Colts. They almost beat Philly, but we don't want that on Sunday night. Come on.
The Colts.
Yeah, exactly. Happy Thanksgiving night, Inks. Happy Thanksgiving. Yes, we did need this one badly after last week. And yeah, I don't think, I mean, you could play the Cowboys 9 times out of 10, and the other 9 times we don't get beat as badly as we do,
right,
as we did that week, and maybe that's, I'm not saying we wouldn't get beat badly again, but to get beat 40-3 again, that probably won't happen to that extent. But I know New England is not nearly as good of a team. The thing that concerns me the most is the biggest thing, the defense for those 3 quarters, because New England's offense has not been good. They have not been good at all. Mac Jones, we basically made him look like almost a Hall of Fame type talent tonight. 382 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Just absolutely shredding the Viking secondary. And granted, I understand we're down to our 5th string corner or whoever it is, but at the same time, like, you knew this was going to be the case going into this game. Why didn't you make the proper adjustments so your defense doesn't look like Swiss cheese out there? And
right.
I think we maybe saw a little bit of that in the 4th quarter with the adjustments. Patriots didn't score at all in that 4th quarter, but man, it's tough to watch that sometimes. It really is.
It is. It really is.
Do you think we're going to see any differences going forward with that, or do you think the defense is just kind of what it is at this point?
I think they got to get guys healthy first before they can try to change the defense or whatever. we were talking last week, and I brought up the comment of Lewis Seen not being there, and now you can actually see, like, yeah, he could have been, in the box with Harrison Smith a little bit more. It gave the Vikings a little bit more versatility with their fronts, but with Cam being out for 4 weeks on IR, Booth not playing well, and he's hurt. Caleb Evans is hurt. It's kind of like, this is what the defense is going to look like until they get guys healthy. And I mean, it's just that bend do not break. I mean, you can see like guys were just targeting Duke Shelley, like it's just every play going down there. Like Jacoby
and honestly,
Myers,
I didn't think he was as bad as some of the other guys tonight, Chandon Sullivan and some of the others.
Exactly. But maybe Dontel should dial some blitzes.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking on that. The last little bit of the fourth quarter, like, why is there no blitzing going on? Like, if you're not going to be able to cover these guys anyway, why don't you just blitz? Like, what's the difference if they're going to catch the ball and go far? Then just as well blitz Eric Kendricks, blitz Jordan Hicks, whatever. It's not like you got Lamar Jackson back there at the quarterback with Mac Jones, and Mac Jones has some athleticism, but he's not gonna probably get away from Jordan Hicks or Eric Kendricks like some of these running backs were tonight, again, and some of these receivers. And I think I think we need to have a serious conversation about some of these veterans on the defense, and it's hard to watch. And I think part of it is the scheme with Donatel, but part of it is some of these guys are just getting old. Kendricks and Hicks and, just some of these other guys. Harrison's been okay, but, I mean, I think he's starting to show some age as well. And as much as we hate to say that because, they're franchise, some of these guys have been franchise players for a long time, it's like, well, sometimes you have to cut the rope, cut the chain, whatever you want to say, just got to bite the bullet and say, hey, we need to put somebody else in there. We need to put Brian Asamoah in there. He may not be the best in coverage, but at least he can keep up with some of these guys, and they're not, getting beat down the field like Tony Pollard beat the Vikings last week. And we saw Ramondre Stevenson do some of that tonight. Obviously not to the extent Tony Pollard did last week, but it's like, man, we have got to figure out some of this stuff, because you go to San Francisco in the playoffs, or San Francisco comes to US Bank Stadium, good luck. Yeah. Like, that's my thing. Like, you're going to have to score 30, 40 points in that game if you're going to have a chance to beat San Francisco. And I know that's a long ways away, but at the same time, our goal is to party with the Lombardi here. We want to win a Super Bowl, right? That's what we want to do. So we've got to figure some of this out, and I know some of it may not get figured out until next season when we get rid of some of these guys or bring in some fresh new blood in there as well. I guess, what are your guys' thoughts on some of the veterans on the defense? Are they do you feel the same way? They're kind of getting long in the tooth, or do you feel like it's more on Donatel here?
I don't know if it's necessarily on the vets, but I would agree that we do have, like, especially Peterson, and I love Patrick Peterson, to be clear, but he's getting a little long in the tooth. You can see it. It shows up especially against receivers with a lot of speed, and that just comes with age. I mean, he still is competent enough, not the competent enough corner where he can still play in this league. I'm not saying he can't. But that's only going to get worse. He's on the other side of his peak. And then Kendricks, I would say Kendricks probably is still okay. I think he still has some valuable years left. My worry with Kendricks coming into this year is I felt like just changing the scheme, him not having Barr, which I know was, whether or not it was a big on the field thing, I know off the field they were very close. And so, just losing his buddy, I know was tough. So I just think what I'm concerned about with the defense is, the young corners, the corner depth, obviously with the injuries that we've had. I really and truly think that the defense that we run is meant to produce field goals. If you look at some of the comparable defenses in the league, um, just from a statistical standpoint, right, like yardage that we give up every week, uh, I mean, the teams that are comparable to the Vikings are giving up a pretty healthy amount of more points than we are. So what that tells me is that this defense is really designed to be like, look, we know we're not going to stop people all the time. The point is that when it matters, when we get on our side of the field, that things tighten up enough where we're going to force field goals. And then we just hope that the offense is good enough to make the other team's offense more one-dimensional. So actually, it's going to sound really weird. So the long-winded answer to your question, Carson, is I think some of the defensive woes we've seen, like in the last couple of games, obviously, especially with the Cowboys, is kind of on the offense in a weird way. Because the offense hasn't been dynamic enough to force the other team into being one-dimensional, which is when you don't have a very good defense, it's really important to do. So I think it's a little bit on the offense, but obviously, right. Though if the defense was stout, we probably wouldn't have to lean on the offense as much. But it's just we are what we are, and that's where I kind of see us.
David?
Yeah, that's a great point. The best defense is a good offense. Like if you really look at the 2017 team with Case Keenum, my wife thought Case Keenum was the best quarterback in the world. And I kept telling her, like, no, that defense is giving them half of the field so they can score faster. and then she noticed it in the Philly game. But if the offense comes out there and they have these long drives, that defense is sitting there. They're thinking up schemes. They're coming in fresh. But if the offense is coming in going 3 and out every time, that defense is at the end of the game, they get winded. But what I do notice, what I would like Dontel to do is down the stretch, I would really want him to kind of tweak that 3-4 and try a little bit of the 4-3 technique, because I still want to see Danielle Hunter on the line, on the edge, hand in the ground, rushing. I still think he's still having a couple of problems, with standing up. So Darius is fine because he's been doing that the whole time. I think down the stretch, when you get to these other teams with these high power offenses where you have to give them some more pressure, I think you're gonna have to try to tweak it to where it's like maybe a 4-3 sub or whatever, where you can put Danielle on the line and rush it there. I think with Kendricks, I think Kendricks is thinking too much. I think it's too much space for him to have to occupy in that 4-3. I mean, in that 3-4 versus him in the 4-3 his whole career with Mike Zimmer. I mean, we would have hoped that it would have been a lot better, but it's just basically that bend do not break mentality. They let these guys get all the way to the red zone and they make a play, and just like Tony said, it's a field goal. So I'll take it from right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, that's for sure. One thing I want to mention too, the Vikings running game was not good tonight. Dalvin Cook carried the ball 22 times, 42 yards, 1.9 yards per carry. Now, granted, I know that New England was going to key in on the run tonight, but man, and you know what I thought was interesting is as ineffective as the Vikings running attack was tonight, I thought the play action was still pretty effective, which is interesting to me. And I know the Vikings offense, that offense is really, really dependent on play action because that's what Kirk thrives on. He just thrives on these play action plays when he can maybe catch the defense napping a little bit. And I mean, most good quarterbacks and most quarterbacks just in general should thrive on play action because you're hoping that the defense is going to bite on it a little bit and give yourself a little bit of separation with some of these receivers. And it's interesting to me. I think just the fact that the Vikings did run the ball so much, even though they weren't effective doing it, that still caused the defense to pause on those play action passes. And I'd be interested to see the numbers on it because it seemed like the Vikings, I'd say probably at least half of their passes were probably play action. But I guess your guys' thoughts on the ineffectiveness of the running game. Let's start with David this time.
I think it's the threat of the home run hit with Dalvin Cook. Like defenses are kind of scared of that because even though Dalvin Cook is pretty much having a down year, he can still break off 30, 40 yards if he, if the zone is there. And I think like what Kevin O'Connell is doing is you got to stay with your roots. You got to stay with what got you here. You can't just abandon the run and just start passing. Look what happened in Dallas. They just abandoned the run and start passing, and Kirk gets sacked 7 times. And even though, Kirk got sacked 7 times, he survived that game. So you don't want to put your quarterback in, that situation. So the running game, I'm just going to keep saying it again. CJ Ham should be in there sometimes just to block, especially now with the offensive line, being a little bit shaky. So, but I do think Blake Brown did an okay job today. But the running game, I just think some of the schemes, some of the zone blocking schemes, some of the power, some of the duos is just. I think Dalvin Cook is still great, but it's just something I can't put my finger on. It's just something just not there to where it's like you're gonna get 20 carries, 120 yards with Dalvin Cook, where he's just constantly getting 5. Like I don't know, they gotta tweak that.
And maybe Blake Brandel being in there not as effective as a run blocker as Christian Darrisaw also playing a factor as well. But Tony, any thoughts on the running game?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I appreciated the fact that they stuck with the run game a little bit, even though it was a grind. But we'll see. I think that injuries probably played a part in what they're trying to do, and let's not let's not give credit where credit is due with the fact that the Patriots, are a pretty well run defensive team. They have always been with Belichick, and so they had a good game plan. They had a good game plan to try to stifle Jefferson as best they could. I don't think that worked out too well.
So that game plan out.
Yeah,
that's right.
Best thing was to try to get Cook bottled up, right? Because that's where, again, they're trying to make us one-dimensional. So at the end of the day, I thought they did a good job. It seemed like they were very, very good at diagnosing when we were going to run the ball. It never felt like we caught them off guard. I thought Dalvin ran hard today, but I didn't see him missing opportunities. It just seemed like the holes weren't there, or again, the defensive scheme had them up against the line, and they made some good plays. So I'm not going to feel too bad about it. I think the biggest thing was just the fact that we kept with it. Because sometimes with, especially Zimmer would even, it's a balancing act, right? Like you don't want to stick with it so long to the point where now you're in desperation mode and you have to just pass. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you don't want to abandon it too early because now you're telegraphing that you're going to go pass, right? So it was nice to feel like there was more balance there than with Zimmer, where I think we kind of have almost the opposite problem where he would just like hang with it for way too long, and it's like, come on, man. Sometimes we got to let the playmakers make plays, So I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think even though Alexander Madison didn't have that much success, he only carried the ball 3 times. I would like to see him get in there more, a little bit of a change of pace, just to also spell Dalvin a little bit, maybe get him a little bit more fresh coming in. Maybe that's got something to do with it. There was one, like 2nd and 2, where we ran the ball and Dalvin just like kept on going east and west. And I was just like, go ahead. All you need is 2 yards for the first down. Like just ram right into the pile if you have to. Like he just kept going back and forth and he got a yard. It's like, I think sometimes he just tries a little bit too much to try and find the big play, where instead he could have had, 3 or 4 yards and could have had a first down, like in that situation. But get Madison in there a little bit more, use him, keep Dalvin fresh, because that's the thing that I want to see him healthy for the playoffs, because I think he could be a huge factor. I loved seeing him in the slot again. Loved that play on that 3rd down. That was great. Want to see more of that. But, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the San Francisco stuff with McCaffrey. Obviously, different player, but kind of gives me that type of vibe. But
how about Waddle? Well, Wangwu.
Yeah, Wangwu. Let's give the
Wow.
special team some love here.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Heck of a return. His third of his career. Only needs 6 more to catch Cordero Patterson. So there you go.
Right.
Yeah, right.
There you go. So
yeah, I think that electrified the game too, like that.
Yeah.
That was a big momentum shift, to get them back in the game. It was similar to that 81-yard run against Buffalo that Dalvin had, to where the team was already like, all right, it's gonna be a slugfest, and then you break a big 97-yard play like that, that everybody gets energized. Like, okay, we can still win this thing. But just like I said before, maybe Nwango needs to get those screen passes.
Yeah. Get him in on the offense a little bit.
Yeah.
I would like that, but maybe again, he's maybe not picking up the offense as well. But want to quickly take a moment to pause and thank everybody that's tuned in so far tonight. Make sure to like, subscribe, and if you're feeling really generous, maybe even sharing the podcast with somebody if you enjoy the content that we're putting out. And we're trying to get to our 100th subscriber. We're over 85 now, 86, I believe we're at right now. So we'd love to keep on rolling, keep those numbers going. So if you could help us out with that in any way, shape, or form, we would appreciate that. And let's talk a little bit about game ball here. Let's transition into that, guys. Game ball. So the pass rush was pretty much non-existent, but when they were able to get that pressure on that final drive, that sack back at the 2-yard line or whatever that was huge. And then Patrick Peterson tackling the receiver in bounds. So maybe a game ball to the fourth quarter defense, too. They didn't allow any points. It seemed like they were able to finally get some pressure there in that fourth quarter when they needed to. No pressure or no sacks pretty much the whole game. And then the fourth quarter hits and they started to dial it up a little bit more. And appreciate you, Erica, with the comment there. But I guess I'm going to give my first game ball. We'll have a couple of more. We'll have one more, I think, from each of us. Two total from each of us. I'm going to give it to the fourth quarter defense for coming up with a big fourth quarter with no points allowed and the big final drive there. David, let's go to you for your first game ball.
Kirk Cousins.
All right.
What I'm going to say is going to be controversial. I'm going to say it. Kirk Cousins, throw a pick early in the game so you can shake the mistakes off and start slanging it. It seems like after he threw that pick, he was like, okay, I'm just 50-50 balls. I don't care. We're going to win this game. So maybe he should throw a pick every game in the first quarter and be a different player.
Yeah.
Let's hope it doesn't take that.
Yeah, right.
But I don't give my game ball to Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk came in and he shook it off from last game of, it wasn't really his fault for playing poorly. He was getting killed. The O-line just didn't stand up for him. He couldn't really find anything down the field. And, just the leader that he's growing into is really amazing from seeing the difference in Kirk with Zimmer and with Kevin O'Connell. He's becoming a leader on that team. I got to give it to Kirk. Tony?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. That's a great pick, by the way, David.
Yep.
Both David and Carson. I'm gonna go with Thielen this game. If I can't take either, the fourth quarter D and Kirk, but I think Thielen will be my pick for my first game ball because, not that he had the most amazing game ever. I mean, statistically, Jefferson had the superior game. It was just nice to see Thielen back in the game plan and everything. I was a little worried when I saw him come up limping, I think in the first quarter. I'm thinking like, oh man, he's finally getting going here. And now we're going to, have to deal with some tic-tac.
Here we go again. Yep.
He was able to, it seemed like he was able to fight through it, whatever, maybe he just tweaked his ankle a little bit coming down. But I thought there was a chance he could have had a good game this week. And I know it's tough, man. I mean, these guys play at a high level for a long time. And for him to kind of take a back seat a little bit in this offense for the first, what are we at, 11 games? So let's say the first 10 games of the season, it's nice to see that he's still grinding, he's still working, and he can still produce in this offensive scheme, because we're going to need him if we're going to make a deep run. We're going to need him. We're going to need Osborne. We're going to need everybody. So it was just nice to see him get a good day today under his belt. I think this is the first, pretty decent game from Thielen all year. So game ball to Thielen for me.
And my second game ball, I think I could go one of two ways here, but I'm going to give it to Mr. Gritty himself, Justin Jefferson. And I know Stephon Diggs says I'm him, but I think Justin Jefferson is him, if you will. That's that's what the receivers say, and people say, when they're trying to. I won't explain it. I'm gonna butcher it, but anyways, Justin Jefferson is him. That's what I'll just say. Just an absolute animal out there with these receptions, like the the contested catches tonight. He just gets absolutely obliterated by some secondary players for New England in this game, and still hangs onto the ball. Like, how do you do that, man? Like, most receivers, I think, are probably dropping the ball, and who knows what would have happened on some of those. But Jefferson is just so good, and he's so hard to, even when you think you got him beat or whatever, like tonight there was one, and he still comes away with a contested catch over Jonathan Jones. So obviously the touchdown as well. Thielen also, big game, 9 catches, 61 yards for a touchdown, as you said, Tony. And then Jefferson with the 9 for 139 and a touchdown. And Jefferson long of 37 tonight as well. That big one to set up, I think, the final touchdown for the Vikings in the game. But
the big thing with
guy
is he's become the master of the late hands, and that was something that Moss was extremely good at. And it's also something that Thielen's pretty good at. It's what's, I think, helped Thielen throughout his career is guys, and by guys, I mean corners. Corners in this league are taught that, think about all the things that they need to pay attention to in any given play. So they are taught that if it's behind them, that one of their last keys to look at is the hands.
Yes.
If they can't see the ball and they don't know when the ball's coming out, they're completely lost. So there's looking for those keys to when they need to react. And a big one is hands. So if you are a talented receiver and you know that this corner tends to rely on that key, that's why he ends up torching guys, because it's not that they're completely lost in coverage. To Carson's point, he got rocked a couple times today because it was tight coverage. The thing is, they had no idea where that ball was until it was basically in his hands. Those late hands. And so he's able to come down with these really tight catches because the corners don't know how to react and when to react. And so it's super cool. It's nice to see that he is kind of mastering the craft, if you will, because all these guys are talented, right? But, he's definitely a student, man. And it's fun to have him on the squad for sure. Did you see Kirk? Kirk says he needs to get some grills next.
Yeah. Let's do it.
It's going to happen, man. It's going to happen. Yeah. Maybe today or maybe.
He's going to have one.
Oh, man. Man. David, let's go to you for your next game ball. Who you got?
I'm giving it to the whole special teams unit and not the kicker. Okay. Everybody else besides Greg Joseph. I feel like the punter, those punts he was doing, pinning them back all game, and especially with Nwangu, with that 97-yard touchdown run. I feel like special teams in the beginning of the season, they were a unit that was like helping out with the games and basically being the best unit of the team and helping out. I think like today was another game that special teams brought it, and it kind of, helped these guys get back into the game. So I'm going to give it to the special team unit, not Greg Joseph.
Yeah, man. That one, I'm like, not again. Come on.
Maybe they should just bring somebody in just to kick field PATs. That's it.
Oh my gosh.
Just bring somebody in just to kick PATs, and Greg Joseph can kick the field goals, and this guy can just do PATs. Like I don't
and
know.
50 plus yarders.
Yeah, and 50 plus yarders. Like they might have to do two kickers or something. I don't know. It just
Well, David, you know who was really good at kickoffs was Blair Walsh.
Yeah.
Hey, I did see a statistic that he's got a better career PAT percentage than Greg Joseph does. So you never know. Maybe bring him back.
Bring him back. Do something.
He could fight
the Blair Witch Project returns.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking with this kicker situation.
It's never gonna. I just don't know if it's ever gonna be fixed. Like, I think the longest time we had a solution was Ryan Longwell, honestly, and ever since he's been gone, it's just been an absolute train wreck. Really, I mean, the one good year from Blair Walsh, and then I mean Dan Bailey wasn't too bad, but at the same time, like, could have been better. So yeah,
like what we have right now. I mean, it was like, maybe a little bit better, but kind of similar where it's, a guy that's, a little, again, he's kind of an older guy, older kicker. Yeah. Joseph is a bit more of a journeyman, but at the end of the day, right, it's like we're just trying to look for a little more consistency than we had before.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Hot take, I bet we either draft or sign a kicker this offseason. Not that should really.
I don't know if that's too hot of a take, but
not that should surprise anybody. But I just say Joseph, this probably is your last year in purple, unless he gets hot and then like he kicks a game-winning field goal in the Super Bowl and we win the Super Bowl, right? Like that.
That's the only way he's getting re-signed is if he kicks a game winner in the Super Bowl. That's the only way.
Maybe they should trade for Daniel Carson. Get him back on the team because
that's right. Hey, we're sorry about Zimmer. Come on back.
Yeah, something like it's. I swear, when he kicks, especially the PATs, I'm always like,
yeah.
I know.
I said it right before. I said, don't miss it, and I should have just kept my mouth shut. Tony, who's your final game ball going to?
My final game ball is going to go to Kevin O'Connell, I think. Because again,
get him his chains.
Yeah, this is one of those things where, again, this team could have come out flat. They could have taken last week and, felt bad for themselves, which I'm sure they did for a moment. But, you got to put a game plan together. It's 4 days. It's in prime time. Everybody's watching this game, right? Because those early games, people are watching, but you're eating. Because I don't know about you guys, but for whatever reason, my family's like, oh, it's Thanksgiving, dinner's at noon, So we're eating and stuff. But the evening game, everybody watches this evening game. And it was cool to see us come and punch back. Like we talked about on Sunday, was there going to be a counter punch to, when we got knocked down on the mat on Sunday? And I felt like we actually had answers today. And obviously the players need to play. That's why my first game ball went to a player. But all the credit to the coaching staff for keeping this ball club together. And I think where we felt some shortcomings with Zimmer and the way that he kind of approached the team and the personnel, we can see the difference here. As we're getting back on track. This team still has the confidence that they had before that stupid Dallas game. And now they can pick up where they left off. Just put it in the rear view and let's look forward. So Kevin O'Connell and staff gets my second game ball.
Friends of the show, Norse Code, they tweeted out on Twitter, retweeting the Vikings, tweeting out the Minnesota Vikings. Your Minnesota Vikings are 9-2. This defense and our kicker will bite us in the ass at the worst possible time this year, but it looks like it'll be during meaningful January football this season. So there you go.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
That's, it felt like last week was a playoff game in some regards because I could see that same, not maybe quite to that extent, but I could see similar things happening in a playoff game. So, but Hey, 9-2 right now, and let's not worry about that right now. But hopefully, I am hopeful that this coaching staff will continue to figure things out, because there's got to be something done defensively. Because if they keep this up, it's not sustainable. We saw it last week. You can't expect to come from behind every week. You can't expect your offense to keep pace every week. So yeah, it's David has been Skol his whole life. There you go. David is a Vikings truther, Vikings fan for life. So
That's it. My
as
dad
we
asked
all
me
are.
every
We're all
year,
in it.
who's
We're
going to
all
win
in it.
Super Bowl? I tell him
There's
every
no
year.
getting out, right,
Hey,
David?
Minnesota. There's no getting out. There's no getting out.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, last segment, gentlemen. List of the week. We already drafted our pies. I think I had pumpkin pie, and I want to say, did I have chocolate silk? I think those were my
Yeah.
pies. And then
Yeah.
I had something else, because we did 3, right? Can't
Yeah.
remember what
Yeah.
my other one was, but I think those were at least 2 of mine. But then I think we had a lemon meringue from Tony. David, you had the sweet potato pie,
Pecan pie.
pecan pie. Yep,
And
all that good stuff. What's that?
you sniped my key lime.
The key lime. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Can't forget that. But now, since we've already drafted or made the list of the week for our Thanksgiving pies, now we got the Thanksgiving meal, because everybody knows dessert comes before the meal. So let's go ahead and do that. And this time we're going to go ahead and give it to Tony. We're going to have him be the first pick here. We're going to go around the horn, and he's going to give his first pick, and then David, and then I'll give my first pick. And so, Tony, what is it going to be? You get the choice between main dishes and sides. You get 3 of them.
Ooh.
So what's it going to be? First pick.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I have to take the low-hanging fruit because of this Thanksgiving. So first overall, it just has to be turkey, right? Like, and I'm saying a really nice, moist, delicious, not dry turkey, which I had. Props to Mom for making the good turkey, man. It was delicious. So I'm going turkey first overall. It has to be on Thanksgiving.
There you go. David, what do you got?
I'm gonna go with mac and cheese.
Ooh, going with the side right out of the gate.
Yeah, mac and cheese. It's not Thanksgiving without mac and cheese. Okay, like
that's a controversial take, David. I had a guest earlier in the week here on the podcast, and we talked about sides, and I mentioned him. So I grew up in the South, in the Southeast in particular, and then I moved to the Midwest a little later on. And I can tell you, living down south, it was mac and cheese was a staple, right? But in the Midwest, it gets a little dicey.
Yep. Northwest Iowa, definitely not.
I'm a big boy. So if you can give me mac and cheese at about any point of the day, and I am good. Like you, I'm not gonna turn down some good mac and cheese. So I'm with you, man.
Yeah, no, Northwest Iowa, Midwest it's not as big of a deal in the Midwest. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a good thing to have. I'm just saying it's not something we typically do. But maybe we'll have to start making that a Midwestern tradition eventually.
Mac and cheese.
No.
Well, since turkey and mac and cheese are off the board, I am going to go ahead and snag myself a Thanksgiving ham.
Ooh.
So, yeah, get the juicy ham with maybe some pineapple juice in there as well. Oh man, good stuff. Maybe better than a Thanksgiving turkey, perhaps, depending on who you talk to. So,
it might be.
So yeah, I will. I'll take the ham and send it back over to Tony.
Ooh. All right. Boy, I'm just gonna take all the staples here. And actually, I think we're gonna do snake style, so it does come back to me. David, I'm really sorry about this. I gotta go mashed potatoes. I mean, is it really a Thanksgiving meal without some potato, and you give me salt and pepper. You could get the butter in there. I can do the gravy, whatever iteration you want, man. I am all for it with the taters.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go with dressing.
Ooh.
Southern dressing. My grandmother used to make this thing with the dressing. It's like she puts the bread together, or something. I don't know how she does it. It's magic. So, and she puts this thing called Gilbert gravy on top of it, and I'm telling you, it's like
That's awesome.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah.
So you would prefer now, did she bake it in the bird or was it
outside? No, it was outside of the bird.
Okay.
So she would basically take the stuff that you will make stuffing with and kind of like grind it up till it was basically like, it looked like a little bit of a bread, like it stayed together, the consistency, but it's like other things in it. And I loved it.
Yeah.
Good pick. Good pick. I think with my next pick, the ham maybe is a little sweet, but I gotta go with some candied yams. I gotta go with some yams, man.
With the candied yams.
Oh man, I had some of those as part of my meal today. Ooh-wee.
I'm gonna go controversial take. I don't like candied yams, Carson.
Really?
I'm not a big fan. I want to like them. It's like the first bite that I take, I'm like, well, this is pretty good. And then the second bite I take, I'm like, maybe. And then each bite subsequently after that becomes less appealing to me. So I don't know what it is, man. I wish I could like them just like I like the first bite, but I just don't. But I know a lot of people that do.
Well, Tony, it's back to you again.
Yeah. I'm officially off the podcast now.
That's right. That's right.
That's what you were going to say.
We'll see you later.
No yams, you're out. Yeah, I'm gonna go. So my final pick, boy, I'm just like the most basic, man. Like I don't know what this is. People are gonna look at my list and be like, what is this like seasoned person? I'm gonna go corn. I just gotta go corn. I love corn. I think it's a staple. You can mix it in with the mashed potatoes. You can see this theme that I'm creating, and everything gets gravy on the turkey, on the taters, on the corn, man. So yeah, definitely going with corn as the third pick.
All right, so you got corn, and you got mashed potatoes and turkey as your three.
Yeah, I mean. That's royalty right there.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, David.
To me.
All right. All right, David. So you got the mac and cheese and you got the dressing. You got to have a main course here, right? Or are you going with another side?
Roast.
Ooh, roast.
Pot roast.
Ooh,
all right.
Okay.
Pot roast.
Yeah.
I'm not really a big turkey guy or a ham guy, but the roast is something or the roast. Yeah, roast for me.
There you go.
Yeah,
I don't think you're gonna get too many roasts for that pick. So that was good.
Well, I'm with you, David. Sometimes we get a little creative. So like with my wife and stuff, and we have like family, like the larger family together. It's always just like the staples, right? But whenever we do anything that's a little more, just the inner circle of the family, my mom. Her son's full Italian, so sometimes we'll do like lamb and like other stuff.
Yeah.
But like freaks my wife out because she's from like small town Minnesota, so she'll be like lamb. Like she was even this weekend. She was like, they better have turkey. I'm like, they're gonna have turkey, not just our weird Italian food.
That's right. That's right. All right. So you got roast, you got your mac and cheese, and you got your dressing. And since I've got a couple of sweet things already with ham sort of being sweet with the pineapple in there, and then you got, of course, the candied yams, I'm going to go with something a little bit more. I think it's a staple, but, some people maybe don't like it. Green bean casserole. That's what I'm going to go with. I think that's a good way to kind of bring it all together. So green bean casserole with my yams and ham. And, not too bad. Not too bad for 3 draft picks here. So, or three picks on our list of the week. So, We really should start tweeting this out to see who takes home the prize each week here. So
maybe we should
We
create
should.
a poll on Twitter.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But we'll maybe have to do that here. But let's wrap things up. I think here, guys. Final statements.
I have a
First of all,
question for you guys.
Yeah.
go right ahead.
What do you guys think about this Odell Beckham situation?
Let him play DB.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the situation with the Vikings,
it's pretty non-existent, I think.
yeah, I'm gonna say I don't think he's gonna come here, so I'm not really.
I wouldn't be opposed to it, but
I don't want him.
Yeah, I don't want him.
You don't want him?
I don't want him. It's too far in the season. Like I've been listening to the games, like the Cowboy games, and they just keep advertising like Odell Beckham is going to pick the Giants, to go pick the Cowboys, and I'm just like thinking about it, like we're already like almost in week 13 already, and like if he goes anywhere, he's gonna have to learn that offense, and he hasn't been playing any meaningful football since the Super Bowl. So what are you actually what are you actually getting? I think whatever team he's going to bring that team down. And there's not just say like he's a cancer, he's not a good player, but that team is going to have to tailor their offense to kind of like feature him. And that's why I want the Vikings to stay away, because our offense is fine the way it is. We can do better, but bringing in somebody in the caliber like OBJ, it's like, especially this late in the season, I don't think it's going to work with anybody. This is my opinion.
Yeah, I think if it was a brand new offseason, maybe the Kevin O'Connell system would maybe help, since he was sort of in that same thing last year with the Rams, but maybe it wouldn't be as helpful as we would think either. So, but yeah, I just don't think the Vikings are going to be able to pay him what he wants, to be honest with you. And I think that's going to be the real thing that keeps the Vikings out of it. I think they'd love to have him. I think KOC would love to have him here, but I just don't think monetarily speaking, the Vikings are going to be able to pay him what he wants.
Yeah, and they got Hawk. So if they wouldn't have never got Hawk at the trade deadline, then I would have kind of opened the door for OBJ. But I mean, we're at the end of the season.
Yep.
And he hasn't been on any team. So,
and I think the Vikings have far more greater problems than wide receiver at this point, with backup corners playing and other injuries, and I think that's kind of where our focus is at this point. So, but definitely a good player. Next year if he's a free agent again, I wouldn't mind taking a peek. But yeah, I agree. It's kind of too late in the game, I think, to really get full use out of him. So.
Yeah.
But David, go ahead and give your final statement here as we wrap this up here.
NFC North will be wrapped up in the next couple of weeks. Vikings need to focus on getting healthy with Christian Darrisaw and the corners and Dalvin Tomlinson on that D line. Don't look past the games after the Jets when they start playing the low hanging fruit with the Packers and the Lions and the Bears and like that. They have to go in there and take care of business, and hopefully, crossing my fingers, hopefully the Eagles stumble and Vikings can get that bye and they can get healthy and start, their playoff run in the second round. Just stay focused. That's just my biggest thing right now. Stay focused and, keep making tweaks and get everyone healthy, and, keep Darrisaw off the field until he's 100%, please.
Yeah. Yep. We saw our offense be successful without him. I mean, obviously we'd love to have him, but at the same time, we can be successful if he is not out there. Right. So let's do that. And here's the thing, New England's a good defense. Like, they're one of the better defenses in the league. So the fact that you were able to do what you did tonight against that defense says a lot to me anyway. But Tony, your final statement, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it pretty short and sweet. Happy to see us get back on the right track. I felt like we showed some fight. We showed some grit tonight. It felt like even when the chips were a little down, where we could have sunk back into again, feeling a little flat, maybe things not going well. It seemed like this team still had a bit of confidence and swagger to keep up. When it felt like we were going to go blow for blow with New England, I got pretty worried because after the devastating loss on Sunday, and by devastating, I just mean it was just so lopsided. It's easy for a team to feel like, here we go again, right? Because again, if we don't keep up, it's going to turn into a blow. Like, all those things matter. Like, those thoughts for sure are running through some of these guys' heads, but they still had enough confidence to band together as a team, say, nope, we're going to win this game. We can control our own destiny. And, you look at the Eagles went through a similar weird situation where they dropped a game, and then you've noticed that they struggled again with Indy, but they won. And see, I feel like it's almost a similar situation where we kind of struggled with the Pats today, but we won. And that matters. It matters for confidence. Obviously, it matters in the win column. But, being able to build up a blueprint on how to pick yourself up off the mat is super important. And they proved that they could do that today. So I'm a happy fan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. These next 10 days or so that the Vikings get off are going to be huge. That is one of my statements here, because not only is it huge for the guys that are injured, but some of these older guys, these veteran guys, give themselves some rest. I think that's going to be huge to try and get some of these guys maybe a little healthier. I don't know if Darisaw will play in a couple weeks. Against the Jets. I'm guessing not. And again, kind of like what David said, don't rush him back, because we want him healthy, not only for the postseason, but going forward into the rest of his career. And most importantly, for himself personally, so he doesn't have to deal with that throughout his life beyond football, because that's the most important thing. So hopefully the Vikings are very cautious with that going forward. And honestly, I think that this was the best offensive performance that the Vikings have put together this season, considering who they played. Bill Belichick, one of the great defensive masterminds of all time, and the fact that they were able to put up the amount of points that they did. Granted, one of them was on a touchdown by the special teams, but I felt like they were moving the ball pretty consistently all night. They only punted the ball 3 times during the game, which I think also says something about how well the offense played for the most part. And so I got to give the Vikings credit, give Kevin O'Connell credit for putting together a great game plan, even though it wasn't perfect, never is. It was good enough. And Vikings' best offensive performance tonight, and these next 10 days are going to be huge for rest for this football team. There's Too Evil to Hope popping in here at the last second. Fire Donatel and elevate Patton. I remember a couple years ago, though, Too Evil to Hope, that Packer fans were all about, oh, you got to fire Mike Patton. Yeah. And now they're all firing Barry, their other coordinator. So it's always somebody else's fault. It's never Aaron Rodgers' fault. It's never LaFleur's fault. It's never anybody else's fault. But
that is correct.
That's the Packers for you right there. So, well, anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe to our podcast. We're trying to get to 100, and then, of course, above and beyond that, hopefully in the future. But we're thankful for all of you. Hopefully you're thankful for the show, and hopefully you guys are all having a safe and happy Thanksgiving with your family. And as always, Skol.
Go.
Right, Vikings, baby.